Saw another quote on Facebook. Been a lot of quotes on Facebook lately. Of course, there always is, depending on who you follow. But the quote went like this: religion is for people who are afraid to go to hell. Spirituality is for people who have been there. Yep, I see a lot of nodding heads out there. I see lots of nodding heads, and I'm right there. So affirm with me right now. I am full of life. I am filled with love. I am full of life. I am filled with love. One more time. I am full of life. I am filled with love. Now, I recognize that at some level it might seem a bit profane to talk about the death of one person amidst all of the death that goes on in our world every day. But the truth is that Robin Williams touched a lot of lives. And I believe that even in his passing, that there is a blessing. He has left us with a blessing. I was watching CNN the night he passed, and there was a 16-year-old. Now, this is someone who wasn't even born when Mork and Mindy was on the air. And he was at the Hollywood Walk of Fame at Robin Williams' Star and was feeling very sad about his passing because his comedy and his skills as an actor had touched his life, and that he felt sad to know of his passing. I did too. Robin Williams was an amazing talent, and he was very generous and very giving. And I have quoted his comedy more than once. And so I felt a little bit of a kindred spirit. Besides, we got the same first name. So, what can I say? And people say, well, now wait a minute. How could someone so talented, so smart, so generous and giving decide that ending his life was the only viable option for him? Well, I do. I get it. I know firsthand what it is to stand on the ledge, look down, and think that ending it all is the only way to make the pain stop. I know personally what it is to deal with depression that benefited from medication. I believe that Robin Williams' passing has created an opportunity to have a dialogue about some of these things that, as particularly, I'm going to say, religious scientists get a little squeamish about. I know what it is to work in the entertainment industry. Now, I am not saying that there are not other professions that expose people to very intense things and that can be very draining. I think of doctors in particular and nurses that see things that no one should have to see. However, what I can tell you is that entertainers and athletes seem to be the majority of this, that they are in a situation that is fueled by celebrity and is fueled by very, very, very lavish compensation for what they do. So much so that in some cases there are people who won't even say no to these folks, and they have enough money to be able to create whatever they want for themselves. And some of it isn't always, the most life-affirming, empowering things. Don't have to think far to come to mind someone, entertainer, athlete, whatever, whose life seems to be moving from one train wreck to another. And yet there are also people athletes and entertainers that are very, very grounded. I know what it's like to work at a job and to put your whole heart and soul into it. In athletic terms, we would say you left it all on the field. And there was a period of time when that's what I did every day, is I left it all on the field because I loved what I did. I was passionate about what I did. I wanted to be recognized for what I did. And so I know that one. And Robin Williams was that way. If you ever saw him perform, he left it all on the field. And then you hear about his generosity to work with Comic Relief and St. Jude's and all of those things. And when I hear about that, what came to my mind was here was a man who gave and gave and gave and gave of himself. And the question I ask, and we'll never know, I don't know, we don't know, we'll never know, how did he refill his tank? And I got to tell you that from where I stand, I really wonder about that. I really wonder. Because I know personally what it is to leave it all on the field. And to absolutely feel depleted and to absolutely not know how to fill the tank. And we try some things, no, I have, not necessarily healthy. We want to feel better. We want to feel fulfilled. And so many people do not know how to do that. And I really think that that is the case for so many people in situations that either by necessity and or choice, they are giving and giving and giving. One of the things that Robin Williams passing started a dialogue about was the idea of depression. And I will tell you, in my years, and I've been in this movement since, 96, wow. And I can remember coming out of the mouth of a minister some very unkind things with respect to depression. And like I said, I have been in that space. And what I will tell you is that when you are in that space, it doesn't matter how good life may be going for you. You still feel drugged down. And in my case, medication benefited. It was the leg up for me. And so I know that place. And I know, and I heard from the mouth of a minister about someone else, because heaven knows I'm not copping to that. There was a time, ain't no way I'm telling anybody. And then I hear this from the mouth of a minister, ain't no way, no how. Because here's what this guy said. Truth. About someone that we knew that was going through depression and was, seeking medical help. Well, they're just not doing enough spiritual practice. They need to meditate more. If they meditated more, they wouldn't be going through this. They're not doing enough prayer work. And I thought, wow, that's harsh. And of course, what I knew is that in my own heart of hearts, I know that place. And that was not very kind, and it was not very compassionate. That is what we used to call RSBS. RS meaning religious science, BS, you can fill in the blank and probably be right. And so in the wake of Robin Williams passing, the networks are trotting out medical professionals, and this is a good thing. And probably one of the most succinct things that was said by one of the doctors about depression is it's a brain disease. Brain, not mind. Mind and brain are not the same thing. Brain is an organ as part of our physical makeup, like our skin or our heart or our liver. Mind is transcendent. Brain is an organ. And so to think that it's possible for brain chemistry to get whacked is not outside the realm of possibility. And I always found it interesting that I can't imagine a religious scientist that would say to someone who is moving through the experience of diabetes to say, yo, dude, you need to do more meditating, get off your meds. And I'll tell you a story. It's a true story. A fellow that I went through practitioner training with, he was living with seizure disorders. Probably epilepsy, I'm really not sure, and I really never asked. But he had it in his head and was getting support for the idea that if he's going to be a practitioner of religious science, he's got to get off his meds. He put himself in the hospital 3 times and almost died once, because he felt that the only way he could show up authentically, now I don't want to say authentically, no. The way he could show up and be respected as a religious science practitioner is to say, I don't have to take medication. I've been healed. Well, you know, science of mind says, number one, that healing isn't necessarily a cure. I think that's important. That's an important point. That healing does not necessarily mean cure. And I personally believe and am grateful for the medical technology that allows more people to live a fuller, balanced life. Some people joke and say better living through chemistry, and sometimes that's referred to as with respect to substance abuse, but there's a truth to it as well in terms of the medication and the procedures and the technology. And I'm thankful, because that's God in action. Now, another thing that came up with Robin Williams passing is the idea of addiction. And of course, the first place that a lot of people went is they started pointing to the various people, entertainers primarily, but some athletes that have struggled with substance abuse. So why do you think that is? What I believe, in fact, Carl Jung said this about alcoholism. He said that alcoholism is trying to quench a spiritual thirst with the wrong drink. I will take that one step further and say that addiction, any addiction, I don't care if it's Haagen-Dazs or Haagen-Dazs to heroin, to sex, to shopping, whatever it is that is done to excess, underline the word excess, is trying to fill a hole with the wrong stuff. You ever tried to patch a hole and use the wrong kind of repair materials? I have. And of course you get it all in there and it looks really great, and then it goes. The minute you try to do something with it or move it or whatever, like, oops. Trying to fill a hole with the wrong stuff. Now, Mark Vieira said that addiction was trying to fill a hole that only God can fill. And that sounds really great. And overall, it is true. But for me, to this day, I still get a little uncomfortable when I hear the word God used in that larger subtext, because I still see the pissed off Big Daddy in the sky. And so I have to, I still get a little tweak when I hear that word. And I know I'm not alone. I've had students in classes saying, And so I get it. And that's why I will oftentimes use spirit or the divine or the great spirit, all kinds of names. And I guarantee you that presence has no concern whatsoever about its label or its name. It is a powerful, loving presence. And so, even if you say it's a hole that only love can fill, that's another word that is just so misused and misunderstood. But, regardless of the word, what I will say is that it is a hole that only some type of spiritual connection can fill. We've been talking about power, and I've been doing a study on the book Why Your Life Sucks. And one of the things that comes over and over again is that we make something outside of us more important. We seek for outside to make ourselves feel whole. And so whenever we're looking to the outside to feel better, then we're making that our primary source. That's, again, underline excess, underline primary source. You get a headache, you take a over-the-counter medication of some kind and your headache gets better. That's a good thing. But, or even a more dramatic example is you have an injury that requires a narcotic painkiller. Been there, done that. And you have to take it in order to feel better. Nothing wrong with that. But if after the need for that goes away, you continue to take it and come up with all kinds of excuses and reasons why you have to, because really you're kind of digging the high, something to look at. Excess. Pain comes in all different shapes and sizes. And there is a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is about discomfort. Suffering is kind of what Tommy was reading about, when you replay it in your head and you torture yourself with it and you blame yourself, you blame others, you go through all of this mess. And then now you're suffering. Now you're in poor me. Now you may even be all the way into victim mode. And victim mode is that place of complete disempowerment. Life is doing you. And there's nothing, you're just helpless. You're a leaf on the wind. You're just getting blown hither and yon, and you are at the mercy of other people and other things and other situations. And that is a really lousy place to be. Anybody been there? Sometimes pain can get so intense. I'm going to say suffering, okay? Pain is a physical experience. It doesn't feel very good. Sometimes it's even part of healing. And sometimes it benefits from medication. No question. Thank you, God, for the technology, for the science behind that. But suffering, it is suffering that leads people to that brink of believing that ending it is the only way to make it stop. Joan Rivers says that suicide is a permanent solution for a temporary situation. And what I can tell you is that, yeah, it may be temporary, but when you reach that place, when you're really thinking about going there, you honestly don't see any way to make the pain go away. in the end, you can't keep giving and giving and giving without filling your tank. Everyone is going to go through what has been coined in spiritual parlance as the dark night of the soul. You know, I was pissed because when I was in practitioner training, I went through a really rough time, really dark, and I thought, yay! I got my dark night of the soul out of the way, I'm done. Not. But you lied, it said dark night of the soul. It didn't say dark nights of the soul. But you know what? Regardless of where you are on your spiritual path, you're going to go there. Now, Ernest Holmes tells us that heaven and hell are states of consciousness. I know that's true. I've been in heaven and I've been in hell, sometimes in the same day. And I know that when things are looking really lousy, that I can say things like, God is more than this. And oftentimes that is just enough for me to go, okay, all right, just ride this out. God is more than this. Or, this too shall pass. Sometimes that works. Although I got to tell you, God is more than this works maybe for me a little bit better than this too shall pass. Because then I go, when? And then, of course, if you want to wax poetic, there's Rumi saying, where there is ruin, there is hope for a treasure. It's true. It is true. You know the one about the little girl digging through the horse manure to find the pony? It's true. But sometimes when you're in it, that all rings pretty hollow. And that is when you allow yourself to be supported by whatever it is. Maybe it's a close friend. Maybe it's a practitioner. You will never reach a place where you are not in need of support. Ain't gonna happen. So if you are working toward that goal, just quit now. Ain't gonna happen. And so, and believe me, I'm one of these like, hey, I can do it myself. And I am smart enough and resourceful enough and strong enough to get away with it a lot. And that's the good news and the bad news. Because then when something does happen, I'm in the past way more apt to try to just put my head down and push through it than reach out a hand for help. Now, I've come a long way with that. And I encourage you to do the same. It is okay to ask for support. Now, one of the things that's happened this last week is that there was a huge dialogue on the listserv. Ministers coming out and talking about being depressed and even still taking medication, of having made multiple suicide attempts, of addictions. And it's a kinder, gentler religious science these days. And one of the ministers who came out said, we need to drop the shroud of shame and admit to our humanity in order to fully claim our divinity. We need to drop the shroud of shame and admit to our humanity in order to fully claim our divinity. And what is our divine nature? Our divine nature is oneness and connection. What is the thing that causes us the most problem? The belief in separation. It comes up again and again and again. So to live in our divinity is to know that we're one and we're connected. So that means that we do lean on each other's strengths and we do forgive each other's weaknesses. Why? Because we are one. In the book, Why Your Life Sucks, one of the things that Alan Cohen talks about is all the ways that we judge, and when we do that, it's just, three fingers pointing back at ourselves. That one of the ways that we can help plug those holes where our energy seems to be draining is to replace judgment with compassion. So that when you see things happening, rather than making such really uncompassionate statements like, they're not meditating enough, instead to say, wow, that person is really feeling a lot of pain right now. Perhaps I can be of support. Perhaps someone else can. And I just acknowledge their pain, even if the reason for it is something that I may not agree with or have. It's like, just let it go and know that that person is in pain. So I want to leave you with this, because we've kind of painted the picture of the traps that we can fall into. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to filling your tank, because you can't run on empty. I've tried. I'm guessing I'm not alone. How do you fill yourself? How do you refill yourself? So here's some questions to ask. What do you do for fun? I know I sometimes squirm at that question too, depending on what's going on in my life. Say, hey, what are you doing for fun? And then some people say, oh, well, I'm out doing my volunteer work and it gives me great joy to be of service to others. And I get so much out of it. Really? What are you doing to refill your tank? Because when you are being of service to others, yeah, it feels good, no doubt. Just still, that's coming from someplace that needs to be refilled. What do you do for fun? How do you relax? I have a friend. Actually, I'm going to physically meet her in a couple of months at a event down in LA. And we've been corresponding. She's part of the online science fiction community that I belong to. And she, even when she goes on vacation, we did this, 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 we did this. And I'm like tired reading it. And we're talking about, we're going down to LA, and of course I lived there for 20 years, and so I said, I will be your tour guide. And she's like, I want to do this and this and this and this and this. And of course, what she doesn't realize is she's talking about things that happen like on two sides of it. LA isn't like Sacramento. And you don't measure distance in miles, you measure it in minutes. And I'm thinking, how do you relax? How do you relax? Yeah, where's the off button, really? And then the last question to ask yourself is, what helps you to feel connected with Spirit? What, in fact, beyond that, what do you do that supports you in feeling connected to life? Ask yourself, what do you do for fun? What do you do to relax? What do you do to feel connected with life? Because those are the things that will fill you. And it is okay to reach out and allow yourself to be supported, because we are all one. Self-care is a good thing. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is your statement to the universe that I deserve my own care and love. That it is as important for me to care for me in the same way that I would care for a friend. Because only then, when you have, and we do have a source, so it's not a matter of we have a source. God, Spirit, the divine is my source and sufficiency in all things, all the time. How do I plug into that? And then how do I then allow myself to be nourished and replenished and refilled? Because then I continue, I am back in the balance and the flow of life, of giving and receiving, of action and inaction. Because when you're out of balance, it doesn't feel good. I'm a Libra, so I'm all about balance. How do you refill yourself? How do you connect with life? How do you refill your tank? Make a list and be honest. Be honest. And then look at your list and see if there's anything you may want to tweak or do differently or something you want to add. There's no judgment. Self-care is how you can self-express. So, join me in affirming, I am full of life, I am filled with love.
I am full of life, I am filled with love.
I am full of life, I am filled with love.
I am full of life, I am filled with love.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And just turning a moment inward and upward and recognizing the presence of love that is in the air as I breathe it. I am breathing in love. Love is breathing me and filling me and sustaining me. I am one. And as I know this is true for me, I know that it is true for every person here and those in our hearts, that we are one with each other and with all creation. And it is from that place of oneness that I speak these words for myself on behalf of everyone here. Right now I know that God is my source and my sufficiency in all things. And I recognize that. I plug into it. I say yes to a limitless source of supply. I am full of life. I am filled with love. And I'm so grateful to know that is true. And so I just let it go into the law of mind, knowing that my word has power and will not return unto me void, that it is happening now. I am full of life. I am filled with love. And so it is.